Okay, Brian, I'm going to ask you a question that I feel like is a hot topic, but we want to hear your real estate journey, or let's talk about both of our real estate journey. But a
Yeah.
question that we always get is, what is the best type of asset class to invest in? And I
Mhm.
feel like there's so many answers to what type of real estate asset should I purchase? Should I be single family, multifamily, short-term rentals, commercial, right? That kind of stuff. But I feel like if you're asking somebody that has all of them, you can get probably the best answer.
Yeah.
So, you and I both have all different types of real estate asset classes. We have our favorites now, or we feel like we have a better understanding on which one is our personal favorite.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can be very successful in any type of real estate that you get involved with. You just need to kind of choose which one you're going to really enjoy
I
the
think your
most,
strategy is what's most important.
and your strategy. Correct.
I didn't at the beginning when I was doing any real estate. We can go back and kind of go from the real beginning, but I didn't have a strategy. I was on the golf course one day with a friend of mine, and this was after I had already purchased a handful of real estate, and maybe well, maybe not a handful. It's like three or four homes, and he asked, "So what's your strategy with that?"
Hmm.
And I felt so dumb, so dumb. And because I was like, I don't have one. I'm just buying to buy because like I want to have, mailbox money that they call
Yeah.
it, a source of retirement. With that struck a chord that from that moment on, I got I got real about what the strategy was. You and I had a lot of conversations since that point, and I feel like we have dialed in what our strategy is and
Correct.
our long-term strategy, how to get there, what we need to do, and now it's just a matter of doing those things.
Yep.
But the strategy, I think, is the most important, and understanding what avenue is going to create what type of income, and do you need to replace an income or is it for retirement,
Correct.
right? Why are you doing it to begin with?
Okay. So let's go down. Let's just talk about how you and I, how we got started into real estate, where we're at now, and what the strategy is now. Because I feel like so many people are going to want to know what our strategy is currently with real estate. But I feel like you can't get to that until you understand how we got to where we're at.
Yeah.
And so my first experience with real estate was the exact same as yours. I started making good income. I knew I should be buying real estate, and I decided to just purchase a piece of property by my college in Utah, and it ended up being the best lesson I've ever learned about real estate because I bought it in 2009, right before the
Mm.
economy crashed. I put 5% down, so it was a really good FHA loan. Put 5% down, and the second I bought this property, it lost about $160,000 worth of value, right? It went down in value because the economy crashed,
Yeah.
the real estate market crashed. And luckily the numbers made sense where it still was cash flowing a couple $100 a month after I rented it out. So I was able to hold on to it where so many people weren't that fortunate with, adjustable rates and that kind of stuff in 2008, 2009. I was able to hold on to my property, and about 12 years later, 13 years later, that property that went down on $160,000 in value had now appreciated back. The market came back and it was up about $250,000 in positive equity. Okay. So it flipped over time,
It's a
right?
$400,000 swing.
A $400,000 swing in about 14 years. I was able to take that money after 14 years and I sold that property and I 1031 exchanged it into a nineplex, a 9 unit apartment complex, right? That now cash flows around $2,100 a month. So, lesson number one in real estate, there is not a good time to buy real estate. You don't ever time the market. The market's never good or bad. The plan with real estate is you have to buy and wait, right? You don't wait to buy. And if you're patient with real estate, you will always end up, right?
Yeah.
It'll always appreciate in value. It'll always go up. And I learned that lesson on this first property. I didn't panic sell when everybody else sold and that kind of stuff. I just held on to it. The numbers made sense when I bought it. And 10, 15 years later, I was able to roll that in and make a better equity move with that property. And I feel like I wish I would have bought 10 of those in 2008 and 2009,
Yeah.
right? Because I would have
Hmm.
been in that same position with all of those, even though you're buying at the worst time possible in 2008 and 2009. So that was my first introduction to real estate. But a few years later, you and I both in our careers were in a position where we needed to start creating retirement, right? We needed to have extra cash flow coming in so that we could eventually retire from our jobs, right? Our careers. But on top of that, we were also learning that we were paying too much in taxes,
Hmm.
right? That was a big motivation for us, that we needed to find a way to invest in real estate and become real estate professionals, not just passive or active investors, but real estate professionals, where we're spending more than 15 hours a week involved in the real estate,
Yep.
so that we could do it's called the cost segregation study and depreciate our assets and save on our taxable income,
Yep.
right? So we're like, okay, we understand real estate. This is going to create retirement extra cash flow, and this is also going to save us on our taxable income. Let's get serious about real estate. What was our first step at this point of our careers? This is about 10 years ago, right? This is about 8 years ago when we started having this conversation.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what to do. Other than I just needed to know I wanted to get into real estate. I have it written in my journal, the goals that I have, and before I had purchased any intentionally purchased a property for real estate or for investing. So I took 2.5 years just straight educating myself on real estate because I didn't have anybody to teach me. I wish
Correct.
so bad I had someone or something to teach me how to do this, but I didn't. And so I just dove into the education as much as I could. I learned about long distance real estate investing, whether to do it, locally or
Hmm.
in a different state, depending upon, because some states are better to invest in than others,
Yeah.
depending upon markets and that, where the market is at. And it took, a few years of me educating myself to get to a point where I was comfortable, because I've made some bad investments before and the reason why they were bad investments is because I didn't know about them.
Hmm.
I didn't understand it well enough.
Yeah.
And I no longer will make an investment when I don't understand it well enough. That's the
Yeah.
number one rule of thumb. Don't invest your money if you don't understand it. And I lost because I not only did I lose my money, I lost some money from my dad and my brother. And it sickens me right to
Yeah.
this day to know I did that. So I spent time and then once I understood it well enough, I put a lot of feelers out there and saying, "Hey, I'm ready to invest. If you know anybody that wants to sell property, whatever." And my CPA said, "Hey, we work with the guy. He, it's just single family homes. Here's his contact info." And I ended up flying out, meeting with him. You actually came with me
Hmm.
and saw the operation that he was running and so on and so forth. And we ended up buying some properties.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest thing I took away from this was the education of doing it,
Correct.
right? Not necessarily that, oh, cool, we got some properties and now we're making money. No, in fact, a couple of them made money, a couple of them lost money, but the biggest thing was the education learned for the couple years that we bought these properties, right?
Yep.
That was I will I won't trade it because now that I understand and know what we went through,
Hmm.
I know how to move forward with things. Whereas
Correct.
I would have never learned that. I don't think so because I have to learn
Uh,
had to
uh,
learn it the hard way.
100%. So our goal into that first investment was we know we need to buy real estate to offset our taxable income. So what type of real estate we're going to get into? And your tax advisor said, we've seen other investors buy these single family homes out in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
They cash flow really well because the cost of homes is so low there, but the cost of rent is very high in that
Yeah.
market. It's a rental market. So the Midwest is great if you want high cash flows on single family homes. And so we flew out there, we saw the operations. They're usually all fixer uppers, homes that you would never want to live in, but they're great for rental markets,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we decided to fly out there and we both bought several properties, that first year. And we're talking, these are $100,000 properties,
Oh
Doug.
yeah.
These
Well,
aren't,
you buy them for 50, but they're
and
end up
fix them up.
being worth 100, but
Correct.
you don't have to put that much into them.
So these are fixer upper properties. We'd go fix them up. They call this the Burr method, right? Where you buy them, you renovate them, you rent them out, and then you can go get a refinance loan on it, and then you repeat that process. You
Yeah.
keep doing that. And so that's kind of the purpose of a Burr. But we went out, we decided to try this. We decided to buy these properties. We decided to purchase them. And when we filed our taxes, it was incredible to see, hey, because you bought these properties, you owe less in taxes. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is awesome. How do we buy more? Right. And after that, we started realizing that fixing up single family homes took a lot of time and effort and kind of unnecessary stress. of why is my property not ready yet? You said it would be ready in 4 months. It's been 6 months, or it's been 9 months. Why is my property not rented out
Yeah.
yet? There's a lot of kind of added stress that you and I didn't love. And so then we're like, hey, this was a great education for us, but what about multifamily? Like, instead of going through this process this many times, can we just go through this process one time
Okay.
on a multifamily? So we both, again, started putting our feelers out there to different realtors and different wholesalers. Do you got any apartments for us? So you bought a couple of little apartments. I bought that 9 unit, and we started doing multifamily.
Okay.
And what was your experience with
It was
multifamily?
better.
Have you,
It was better,
same. Yeah, for me
but
too.
I don't think it was what I loved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but we're also not doing it at a scale where you're buying,
200 units.
200 units. So that might be different. But at the scale that we were doing it at, it was better, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
And when I got the phone call, well, so before this, you had been vacationing to a place that you absolutely loved. It's a couple hours away from your home
In
in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I think like one day I want to own a cabin here. One day I want to do this. And you were, I don't know if you were grooming me or what, but
Planting
but
seeds.
planting seeds or what. But we knew we wanted to be partners on this real estate thing because it's, there's great things for partnering and sometimes, and for real estate, we wanted to partner up on some things. So you reached out to me. I can't remember. We had owned these the units in these single family homes for a year or so, and maybe two. And then you said, "Hey, Braun, are you serious about buying?" No, no, no. I had a tax call. That's what it was. I had a tax call, and they're like, "You really need to find a way to offset this income." And so I called you and said, "Hey, are you really serious about buying one of these cabins up in Oklahoma?"
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, "Yeah, I am." I was like, "Hey, well, can we do it?" And this was, I had the tax call in October. And I said, "Well, can we do it before December?"
So 2 months we have
Yeah.
to find a property.
Yeah.
One month to find a property, 30 days to basically get that thing
Yeah.
under
Yeah.
contract
We
and
had about
closed.
two. Yeah. And we did it. We made it happen. And and since then, we now have 3 cabins up there.
Mm-hmm.
And it has provided not just a more income on a real estate standpoint, but we have more equity, more principal pay down that is happening.
Yep.
The cash flow is better, and then the appreciation is higher. We're
Yeah.
going to get way more appreciation, but I think even better than well, lumped in with all of that is the memories that are created by owning that type of real estate,
Yeah.
which is the nightly rentals.
Yep.
That the memories that are created on top of all of that. We did that for the first one. After we did that very first one, we honed in our strategy, and our strategy has been to buy that. And I think going into that strategy a little more would be great. But
For sure.
we've loved the Airbnbs now.
I feel like for us, single family was good, saved us on our taxes. We got cash flow. I still get
Yeah.
cash flow from our single
Yeah. So
family
do I.
homes.
It's great.
They're still good.
Just not,
It's
it's
not a
good. It's
lot.
good. It's good.
It's $300 from one property is a lot different than $5,000 from one property,
Yeah.
right? It's just different. But the barrier of entry is a lot different too, right?
That's the key. Yeah.
So at the time, single family was good for us, and then it was multifamily. Barrier of entry is a little harder with multifamily, and cash flows are incredible with multifamily. And the equity game is different with multifamily. The tax savings were incredible with my multifamily property, and I loved having that call with my CPA. And hey, good job buying this real estate. You pay less in taxes this year, and that
Yeah.
was awesome, right? And then we talked about doing the Airbnb. We talked about the cabin. We started doing research on it, and then the opportunity for you to save on taxes, and obviously it helped me with my taxes too, was should we buy a cabin right now? And we hit the market. We decided to buy a cabin, and again, we saw the tax savings immediately, which we bought the reason why we partnered up on the first one, and it really made sense, is because we bought a $1.2 million cabin, right? And we could have done two $500,000 cabins, and it would have been affordable to both of us. But cash flow and rental occupancy and all the numbers just made sense on a bigger property that housed a lot more families and a little bit more luxurious in the market that we were looking in. And so we're like, hey, let's partner on this one. We've never partnered before on any of our real estate stuff. Let's partner up on this one. Let's form an LLC together. Let's go 50-50 on this property. And we'll both get the tax benefits. We'll both get the cash flow on this property. And there's high trust with me and you. We've had 20 years of business experience together. So that was easy to partner up on each other and hold each other accountable to doing the right things and the work that's involved with this. But when we're able to buy this first property, immediately we saw the tax savings. We started seeing the cash flow, and those cash flows were a lot more exciting when it's like, dude, we just got a rental for $5,000 for this week, right? Over Christmas or over Thanksgiving or New Year's. It was like, holy smokes. We made 80 grand net profit after all of our expenses on our first Airbnb.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, change of strategy,
Yeah.
right? So our strategy was how many single family homes and multifamilies can we buy before we can retire? And we're like, hey, 5, 6, 7 years, retired, replace our income with this, right? And then we got into Airbnbs and we're like, okay, how many Airbnbs does it take in order to really hit the cash flow goals that we want to have with each other? And we looked at it, hey, even if we partner and just go get for these awesome $1 million properties, what we realized quickly is our strategy was if we're getting around a 20% cash on cash return on these properties, which we were getting more than 20% on this first one, and we're getting right around 20 on the second two. If we're averaging 20% cash on cash return on these properties, it only takes 5 properties before those 5 properties are buying us a new cabin every single year,
That that
right?
was that. And when we understood that, that was, I mean, it was exciting because we saw a future with it.
Yeah, we don't need the income from the properties, right? Like that, we don't need this to we don't need this income for our livelihood right now. We both have jobs,
Yeah.
right? We have income coming from our careers. This extra income is going right back into our
Mhm.
our savings account. So when it's ready to buy another cabin, we're buying a new cabin with that income, right? And so now that we have all these cabins building up income, we're able to use that income from those cabins to go purchase and acquire another cabin. And that second cabin was so fun because we had 80 grand from our first cabin to roll into that second
Yeah.
cabin. Then we had 2 cabins cash flowing that were able to roll into the third cabin and the fourth property, and it just kept building, right? And now we understand, once we get our fifth property this year, we'll be able to have a cabin paying for a new, or all of our cabins together, we'll be paying for a new cabin every year. Now we're not even coming out of our own pocket. But what happens if we keep also buying a cabin out of our own pocket every year as well? So now we're getting 2 cabins a year, one paid for by our other cabins, one paid for by us,
Yeah.
and we keep growing and scaling this thing. It's unlimited potential of what this thing can grow into, in 10 years from now, who knows? But at that position, now we're making equity moves and we're moving that equity around to go acquire more properties.
Yeah.
And it's just the compound effect of real estate,
Yep.
not the stock market, but of real estate. It's the compounding effect of the income coming from
I
that.
mean, you mentioned the stock market there, and it's I've been in the stock market for 20 years, and it's been good. Probably because I just continue to fund it, right? Because I didn't know what to do with my savings and my money. But I'm so grateful that this principle of saving was ingrained at a young age, because that's where we've been pulling a lot of this money from in order to buy these cabins. So I think if we have people that want to do invest their money in stocks and or real estate, and we can go into that later. But since we've been doing this, and as I've been educating myself more on it, there is no question whether I believe an investment is better in a stock market that I don't really have control of,
Hmm.
and real estate where I do have full
You have
control
full
of the
control.
asset.
Yeah.
And when you're buying an asset and you have control of that asset, it's the feeling is completely different than when you're stocking your money away into the stock market. I'm not saying it's bad to do that, because I've done it for a
Yeah.
long time, and I think there are benefits to it,
Yeah.
but
You
I
and I both
love
still have a lot of money in
real
the stock
estate.
market, but we love our real estate investment. I think the difference between all different asset classes, like if somebody was saying, which one is best for me, right? If
Yeah.
they're asking that question, I think it all comes down to planning for the worst case scenarios, right? So worst case scenarios on a single family home, the mortgage is $600. I lose a tenant for 2 months. Can I float $1,200 a month? Like, can I pay that mortgage and be okay? Like, right? Like when you're starting off, like, yeah, that's easy. Once I get the 2 or 3 properties, you're now a little bit more protected, right? You're insulated
Yeah.
because you have three properties now. The odds that all three of them are going to be empty in 1 month,
Very
slim to
low.
none,
Yeah.
right? You buy a 9 unit or a 12 unit apartment complex, I lose two or three of those rents. My mortgage is still covered by
Yeah.
the other 10 units. Like I'm insulated because I have more doors,
That's the
right?
key if you're going to be doing long-term rentals, right?
Correct.
Not short-term.
Yep.
You have to insulate
You,
yourself.
you got to build it up to where you're insulated because one property is not going to change your life. 300, $500 a month. You got to get to a point where you're buying a property every single year or two properties every year to your point where you're insulated. But your comfort level with risk, right? With investing, there's risk in all investments. Is worst case scenario, what if I lose a tenant? Can I handle the mortgage, right? And it's a lot easier on a single family home and to get another person in there and another renter in there in a month or two, get it cleaned up and get it. That's your
Yeah.
risk, right? With an Airbnb, when you buy $1 million property, your risk is, what if COVID happens again? Can I pay this mortgage, right? Can I cover that entire mortgage if no tenant can go and rent this cabin out for a month or 6 months, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to be prepared for a worst case scenario. Obviously, there's always risk. There's always going to be that kind of stuff. But for us, we've had those conversations as business partners of risk management. We have this many properties now. Let's say worst case scenario is just 20% occupancy. Our goal is 50, 60% occupancy. What if it got down to 20% and we're only bringing this much money in? Could we handle the mortgage on these properties and stay afloat until the
Yeah.
market came back? Because the market will always come back.
Let's say it's 6 months to a year. Are
6 months
we going
to
to
a
be
year, could
okay?
we handle the mortgages on these? And the answer is yes, like we can, right? And that's kind of your level of risk management is what you got to look at with what type of asset is the best asset class for you to be in. And I feel like the way we did it was perfect because we built up cash flow from other asset classes that kind of diversified our portfolio. Then we were able to take a little bit more risk with these Airbnbs, right? And investing
Yeah.
here. So if we had to make extra mortgages there, we have cash flow coming in from other properties that will help offset that mortgage, right? We're insulated because we have more doors and we're diversified with that. And so that's kind of my recommendation is if you're looking into a different asset class, what is your risk tolerance, right? Like, can I float the mortgage in worst case scenario? You should always run numbers off of worst case scenarios with rents and occupancy rates and tenants, and that kind of stuff. And if you can handle it worst case scenario, you can definitely handle it in best case scenario. You'll enjoy it a lot more and you won't have that stress of enjoying the property if a worst case scenario actually
Yeah.
happens. You'll survive and you'll be just fine, like I was in 2008, 2009. Worst case scenario happened and I survived just fine. And that ended up being probably the worst investment I've ever made, ended up becoming a great investment 10 years later because I was able to handle worst case scenario,
Yeah.
right? The market fell apart, the economy crashed. I was able to handle worst case scenario, even with rents going down and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so I think to answer anybody's question, if you're looking at what type of real estate to get into, you can make money in all types of real estate. There's no wrong way to invest as long as you have a system in place, right? And you have a plan, like what is our strategy with these properties? How often are we going to sell them and turn them? Like we talk about that in our course a lot. On every 4 years, we're going to look at the equity position we're in. If it's a great cash flowing property, we're going to do a cash out refinance, move that equity to go acquire more properties, and we'll refinance that
Right.
property. If it's not cash flowing how we're liking, or if it's a problematic property, we're starting to have a lot of wear and tear or whatever, let's sell it. Let's put ourselves in a better equity position with a different property, right?
Okay.
Or maybe go get two properties now with that property. And so we have strategies that every 4 years we're going to look at those properties and we're going to make an equity move on those properties.
Who knows? I hope at one point our equity will be into a multifamily, but a big
Like
multifamily.
200 units, right?
Yeah.
And
That's the goal at some
that
point.
would be awesome. Or maybe we go buy a $3.5 million beach house down in Florida, right?
We could do
Like
that too. That'd be
something like
fun.
that, where
Yeah.
it makes sense with the numbers. But when you make those not cash on cash moves, but equity on equity moves, it's like, where can I move this equity to get a better return on my money? And that might not even mean sell the other property, but utilize the equity you've built up on that property for 4 or 5 years and go put it into another investment and keep scaling and growing your portfolio. It is the compound effect of long-term investing, of having a plan for 5 years and 10 years down the road. And it's just that snowball effect will keep growing and getting better and better with real estate, which is why real estate's so exciting.
I think one of the things that I could recommend to someone if they are going to go into real estate and you want to mitigate your risk, having a partner is very good. I mean, we've seen it, right?
Yeah.
It's worked really well for us. Some people don't like partners, and some people want to do it all on their own, and that's great too. Um, but I think if you are going to go into any kind of real estate, I guess any kind of business opportunity, you have to understand that this real estate that we do is a business.
Hmm.
And because it's a business, we have to go into this understanding what are both of our long-term goals. Long
Hmm.
term. Because if our long-term goals don't align, we're going to run into big problems later on down the
Yeah.
road. So getting into bed with a partner that you're not sure of what their long-term goals are is a bad move. So be careful about going into partnerships with real estate if you're not quite sure what the long-term move is on that.
Yeah, and you have to have those hard conversations with worst case scenarios with this property, right?
Yeah.
Like when you launch an Airbnb, or even when you launch multifamily and you're doing rehab or work on it, if you chose to have a partner, there's costs affiliated with that that you have to, I'll just talk about Airbnbs. When you launch a new Airbnb, your first month probably isn't going to be rented out very much, and it
Yeah.
takes some time to build momentum with your Airbnb. We have some strategies to help with that, and we grow our social media before launch, and we have a launch date, and we've done really well our first months with our strategies with Airbnbs and short-term rentals. But a lot of times, your first month or two, you might be covering the whole mortgage, right? Like
Yeah.
with this new cabin we closed on, we had to close on by December, but furniture, because of all the stuff that's going on with
It,
shipping and stuff, it took 2 months to get all of our furniture.
yeah.
So we had to float the mortgage on this property and the utility bills for 2 months on top of our initial investment, right? And that goes into the cost of investment and your cash on cash return. But I got to be confident that my partner is going to come in 50-50 on these expenses when we have extra expenses with the property and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So I feel like a business partner, if you have very high trust with that business partner and you have those hard conversations before you go into it, you set up the proper LLCs and legal documents, agreements with that partner. Partners are great,
Yeah.
and you can actually go and acquire better performing properties more than what you could get on your own, right?
Yeah.
And just probably be able to afford on your own. And so I've loved our partnership with that.
The other thing is that I think one thing that if I could do it all over again, if I could do all over again, number one, I'd invest in real estate much sooner.
Way
Number
earlier.
one.
Yes.
But in order to do that, I would actively seek out a way to have a mentor.
Hmm.
I'd actively seek out a way to understand real estate. I mean, now there's so much information out there now. I mean, we have a real estate course
Yeah.
that teaches you how to do Airbnbs,
Yep.
and I mean, the time that we've spent in developing that course and what we actually go through. If I would have had that course, right,
Yeah.
that is equivalent to a mentor,
Yeah.
right? And because the data we give, but either way, whether it's a course you purchase or whether it's a mentor you get, find a way very quickly to understand real estate and get into it as soon as you can. Because when you start owning assets that are paying for all of your liabilities that we've talked about in the past, life becomes fun.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot of fun. So find a way to get into real estate because it's been an incredible journey.
And here's the thing about real estate is most people stay on the sidelines way too long.
Yeah.
99% people talk about getting in real estate. 1% of the people actually invest in real
Yeah.
estate, right? Like it's everybody wants to do real estate. They understand the benefits of real estate, but so many people are afraid to get off the sidelines and actually jump into their first property. The best teacher that you can have is getting into that first property.
Taking that action. Yes.
Taking that action. I think so many people are scared of the first property and what if
It
this
doesn't
goes
go
wrong
good.
and doesn't
Yeah.
go good. Here's the thing about real estate is if you do your due diligence, your basic 101 education, or find a mentor to get the basic information or get a course, whatever, and then you jump into your first property, you will figure out how to make that first property
Yep.
work. You will figure it out. When it comes down to lending, there is so many lending options to get financing for a piece of real estate, right? If you have a piece of property that is a cash flowing property or good investment, you can find lending
Yep.
no matter what. And if it comes down to qualifying for it, or if it comes down to, just property managers or getting systems in place, you will figure it out because you need to figure it out on the way, and it'll be the best lesson you ever learn. And the second one will be that much easier because now you've checked all the boxes, you've figured it out once. Second one's easier. Third one's even easier. Fourth one's a breeze at that point.
And the only thing I would say to that is don't quit after one.
Yes.
Don't quit after one. Whether it's a home run or not a home run, don't stop buying real estate after one, because I've I've seen people that have,
Hmm.
and they have a pretty negative experience about real estate, and they think real estate's a bad deal and a bad investment. And but had they, I mean, you cannot judge real estate after one deal.
Correct.
You have to just keep doing and moving and positioning that cash flow in the next deal. You have to do it.
Yep.
And you'll find yourselves loving real estate.
So Bron, you just got done mentioning about that course, right? That you wish you had, and the course that we do have. We've had so many people reach out to us about, can I take you to lunch? Can I take you to dinner? And these are friends and family. These are people that genuinely want to learn how to get into real estate or Airbnbs, mostly Airbnbs. They're seeing that we're enjoying our Airbnbs and we're doing good with them. And they want to sit down with us, or they want to jump on a call. The amount of information we've learned over the last 3 years in doing all these Airbnbs together cannot be taught in a lunch. You can pay for my lunch. It's not going to get us anywhere, as much as I'd love to help you. So we invested time, money, effort to create this course, right? And time and more time. Like it's taken a long time to create this course. But this course is everything we wish we would have known going into our first property, to give you 100% buyer's confidence that I know the A through Z's of starting a profitable Airbnb, from how to acquire my first property, how to find my first property, how to get lending for my first property, how to set up my LLC, just throwing these subjects out there, to what is my marketing strategy? How do I build a social media around this and have a strong first month? How do I get direct bookings versus being solely dependent on Airbnb and VRBO's website, right? These are all so many subjects that you just either have to figure out on your own, or you can pay for somebody's time. And that's why we created this course. But I feel like we've made it a very affordable price. Make sure you go to our website, top1percenter.com, and look at the course and watch the video and reach out to us and ask us questions if you have. But that is our personal goal with this, is that we can help you get started into building your Airbnb strategy, your short-term rental strategy, and have success with this, that it ends up being a great experience for you. And we wish we could personally sit down with all of you and mentor all of you. It's just not possible. It's just not feasible. And so I'm super excited about this course. I feel like it is a grand slam of all the courses out there and available. Make sure you go to top1percenter.com and click on that course, and don't be afraid to jump in. You'll get 100% return on your money by buying the course. And
I think that's the biggest thing. I compare it to taxes, like having a good CPA. I might go and spend more on an educated CPA who is on top of the tax code. It might cost me more, but it's like this much compared to what I'm going to get out of it, right? The return I'll get on those taxes. That is just like our course. You go spend the money to go have all of the education you need, and it's just up to you to take the action. But you'll look back and be like, that was that amount of money was so worth every penny, because I've made it back like 100 times, 200 times over.
You will make the course investment, the course cost, you will make over, just like you said, 100 times over, just from tax strategies to furniture strategies to marketing strategies and social media strategies. You will get that money back 100 times over instantly when you go launch your first Airbnb. So we felt like we put a modest price on it that everybody could go to afford and everybody could get started with this. We're super excited for you guys to have it. Make sure you check it out at top with a number 1percenter.com for those that you're listening in.